Again, like, maybe talk a bit about when you had that revelation about you weren't quite ready for what you thought you wanted to do, what was that like? Was it okay to feel that transition, or were you a little disappointed, or how would you suggest even that? Because again, I think it's like 75% of students will change their major while in college. So I'd be curious just your thoughts about getting to that point and any advice you have.
So I had a film a film major and a communication science disorder major, but I'm awful in science. And that didn't change like when I studied that. And so I remember visiting with I don't know if it was one of the assistant deans for the CSD program or one of the advisors, but I remember talking to them, and they were like, it's okay to not graduate with a double major. Nobody's gonna care, when you get into the real world. And I was just like, are you sure? Because to me, I thought, well, the more degrees, the more, like all of that's gonna matter.
Because I think students today have a lot of pressure, with the cost of college debt. Like you said, very well-meaning parents who, it's like, hey, go get the safe job, right? Or go do XYZ thing. And I was wondering if you could maybe talk to that a bit more of just any advice for how to keep those blinders on and how do you keep focused when those, even again, to your point, I think it's a great one. Even though there's a love and everything like that behind it, it's just that it might not be your exact path.
I did also believe in finding that 9 to 5 job and working the ranks, working up in the ranks. Um, so I did have that belief in the beginning, and I did kind of do that in New York. What I can say is, I got pretty high up and I was making really great money, but I wasn't really fulfilled or happy. Um, and I think that takes like time and maturity to really realize that. And so I would say like another, piece of advice is like even in a rough period or, a difficult time, trying to find the good things out of that really like help you. The job sucked, the pay sucked, but the people, I don't know how I would have made friends if I, hadn't met some of the people early on in New York at that job. And I don't know when I would have been introduced to that world of entrepreneurship if I hadn't had that job. So I'm really grateful for it.
I understand the story of why you started, but I couldn't necessarily find out why or how you and your partner kind of came together to start it, right? In terms of how did you decide that, yeah, that he was the one that was going to be the one to go with, and kind of make that. I think also a big question mark would be how do you take big career risks, and kind of evaluate that in your career? Because obviously it was, uh, I mean, it was within the entrepreneurial space, but it's different than what you traditionally had done.
I worked really closely with Bobak on several different projects. And we always worked very well together. But I think, in addition to that, I really trusted him as a person, as a human being. I don't think that there's anybody else or not many other people that I would trust wholeheartedly to jump into something like debut with. My goal with that, from the beginning was I'm not trying to get traditional VCs to come to my website, and I hope they eventually do, but that wasn't my priority. My priority was the underrepresented founders that I want to invest in. I want them to feel welcome to the website. And so I just think that, being your authentic self and just being genuine um, gives you more of an opportunity to, I don't know, make people feel welcomed or feel um, heard, seen. I think that's my goal, especially when I do panels and have conversations.
And technically, you don't have any background in finance, but have been highly successful as a venture capitalist. Obviously, as an underrepresented person in the space. And so I was just maybe wondering if you could talk a bit about a, kind of getting over that fear to like enter that, but then B, for some of those other kind of underrepresented students who might be, curious about a career, but say, oh, I don't necessarily fit that mold. How do they kind of overcome that themselves and kind of push themselves into the arena?
Yeah, I think that it's a strength. Not fit. I think today, like, not fitting into that mold is a strength, and I think that's going to continue to be the trend. When you think about, like, right now, there haven't been many IPOs, right, because of the market. But I think as the market kind of bounces back, however long that will take, when we start getting back to seeing, some of these acquisitions and IPOs, why wouldn't um, diversity be a part of that? I think it will continue to be a part of that, if not more so. So I think for underrepresented students that might look at certain sectors and think, yeah, there's something I want to do there, but I don't really fit the mold. I would say like the mold is kind of a scam. And I think that there's a lot of people that don't fit the mold that are looking for others that don't.